Actually, I've been to all 4 Free Cities conferences. Who else? A few. The very first one was more private, between Tipolis and the Free Cities Foundation. So officially we're only 3, but we still have some people here in the room from day one, which I'm happy, because a lot of things have happened since then. I want to make the moral case for free cities, and this is an important issue because people say, yeah, free cities are only for the rich and it's only about economic freedom. This is not true. And this is especially not the reason why I wrote this book, because I was deeply dissatisfied with our current systems. They claim to be democracies, but I had not the feeling that I had any say in it. I was giving away my vote every 4 years to people who would then not do what they promised before the election. And since I'm not living in Switzerland, I couldn't even make a referendum. So there was basically zero, really, participation. And the other insight was that my and probably our ideas of freedom and self-determination are unfortunately not shared by the majority. Not yet. And so it's very difficult to change existing systems, and we do not want to force people to something they do not like. That is deeply unethical in my view. And so the idea was, let's create something new. So the main moral, I would say, advantage, or the main moral, or the main reason why free cities are morally superior is that they are based on voluntary consent. And that means 100% based on voluntary consent. So you are born in whatever system, and in our world, the idea is that you have a look at the predefined set of rules, the citizen's contract. Like you look at the website of Prospera, say, what are the rules? And okay, this is the contract they offer me. Do I like this, or do not like that? If I don't like it, I just stay where I am. If I like it, I go and join them. And you can also withdraw at any time without having to pay a leave tax. And even a failure would be manageable and ethically acceptable. Why? Because you have given your informed consent to the rules and the possibility that the for-profit operator may fail, become insolvent, another operator takes over, or a hostile government is attacking the city. We all know that. Now compare this to a nation state where a group of, say, communists take over the country and call it Soviet Union. And it's only a minority that has voted for that has taken over power. And it took 70 years to destroy the whole system and to make people recognize maybe it's not such a good idea, right? This is completely different here. It's a small area. Everybody is participating voluntarily. And the next quote I want to present to you is, all quotes I'm presenting today are kind of not the view of the mainstream, but nevertheless they're all true. This is from Professor Puster from Hamburg, who was quite influential in also my thinking. And he says, cooperation does not require any legitimacy other than the voluntariness which is entered into. And that is true. It took several thousand years for mankind to accept that gay men have the right to associate with each other and live together. And took maybe 100 years to accept that maybe they have a master-servant relationship on a voluntary basis. We still haven't reached that enlightenment when it comes to all living together. A group of people want to secede from a country. It's forbidden, basically, all over the world. So a group of people want to create a free private city within the European Union. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. Because people do not accept that inside. But more and more do, and that is a good sign. Since we started with those conferences, there will be more attendance every year, and we have also more online attendance every year. The main cornerstone of free cities or free private cities, this is my type of free city model, as you know, is that there's a real social contract. Social contract is supposedly something that we all have, and the theory is that we all give away some of our freedom to the state so that he in exchange can protect us. So far, so good. And the protection of life, liberty, and property is a legitimate, in my view, a legitimate function of a city operator. And that's what I promise in the contract. But it is written down. Whereas in our world of today, this is a fiction. And the problem with the social contract is that it's constantly changed. Never by us. Always by the other side. Can this be fair and morally acceptable? I don't think so. So what we have is a situation where we have a service contract, which is at the same time a social contract. And Rousseau himself said, well, if there is a social contract that says majority should rule, what we understand under democracy, initially, everybody has to agree on that, because you cannot just agree again, or you cannot just against your will be forced in a system where the majority decided. Just a thought experiment. On that side, a few more people sitting in on the other side. Now let's introduce democracy. We vote that you pay each 1,000 euro to them, and they will just dominate you because they're more. That is obviously unfair. And that's why Rousseau said, first, all of us have to agree that we are subject to a majority principle. And then we can decide about whatever is there. It's not happening in practice, but it will happen in free cities because, or at least in free private cities, because they will be based on 100% initial consent. We will only have people who have voluntarily signed a contract knowing the respective rules. And you pay only for what you have ordered. And we cannot change the rules that we both, I'm as the operator, you as a resident, have agreed upon voluntarily. And that is a very, very big difference to today's world. No man's life, liberty, or property are safe while the legislature is in session. This is not only a joke, because legislative bodies tend to develop an own dynamic. Let's make a deal. You agree to my preferred crony law, and I agree to your bullshit woke law. Deal? That's how politics work. And this is, of course, to your disadvantage. And insofar, it's better and more fair if you can decide for yourself wherever possible. So you do not have to delegate your life, liberty, and property to third parties, which eventually will follow own interests. This is inevitable, because humans are humans. And there will be all kinds of horse trades which law will be passed. And it will not be the interest of you. The representatives have their own interests, and that is the problem. And we cannot solve that problem. It's unsolvable. So what we can do is just, another quote, I haven't put it down here, is the less politicians have to decide, the less it plays a role who controls them. And that's exactly the way to go. And how can we achieve that? It's about equality and reciprocity. And the biggest or the only thing we all can agree on is equal rights for all. That is clear, because why can I demand more rights than for me than to grant you? That's obviously unfair. Everybody knows that, right? But in the reality, we have two sets of rights. The public law saying the state can do this and this, can take away money from you, called taxes, and distribute it to other people. I would say in exchange for votes if I would be critical, but I'm not doing that. So the traditional systems have already not equal rights. They have different rights. One, the ruling party has more rights than the other, which is a problem, right? It creates a problem. And in free private cities, there is no public law. There's only private law. So we have all kinds of rights which are symmetrical. The operator has the same rights and obligations as the resident. Of course, we agree on that in the contract, but let me make an example to put some more light on that. In Germany, you have basic human rights in the constitution, right, which are quite reasonable and sufficient. But if you think that your rights have been violated, you have a problem, because you can go to the special constitutional court, and there's a special procedure, basic rights violations. You can make a complaint about your basic rights violation. Now the problem is, the procedure says that the court has the right to accept or reject your application. Can just say, no, we are not dealing with your case, without giving any cause. Right? And that's the reality. 99% of all complaints are rejected without explanation. Now imagine we had a contract, you and I. That means everybody has equal rights. I can sue you for not performing or for not paying the basic fee, and you can sue me because you say he has not protected my right to life, liberty, or property because whatever. And the court cannot just reject your claim. They have to negotiate it. They have to make a trial on that. That is a difference. It's a big difference, because what we see in reality is that the courts, they pick just the cases they want to make their political cases, and the others were just rejected or just not even dealt with. So that's a little bit technical, legal point, but it's very, very important when it comes to equal rights and the enforcement of equal rights. And since free private cities are only officially protecting your life, liberty, and property and leaving the rest to you to unfold in a spontaneous order, you can make all kinds of associations, you can make all kinds of clubs and parties and whatever you want, but you cannot interfere into the contract of your fellow citizens. And imagine you knew that. You would immediately abstain from trying to influence politicians, influence the operator, tell me, hey, we should increase the taxes and finance whatever, a swimming pool or military intervention in Russia. So I said, well, even if I like your case, I cannot force my contractual partners to pay more because it's not in the contract. It's not in the contract that I can raise funds at will and change all the rules. I mean, I could write this in the contract, but then it's the model is not attractive any longer, right? So I'm not going to do that. So I have to say, sorry, I know you have an honorable case, but unfortunately, I have to tell you, I cannot force people. You have to go around and collect money for your swimming pool or for your military intervention by yourself, right? And this will, if we just think a bit in the future, create a nearly non-political society. Clearly, there is some politics with the host nation, the international community and all that, but internally, there's relatively less politics in the formal form, because you know that you cannot change the rules. And that means that all these distribution struggles and stirring up of social groups against each other will disappear because you can't win. You cannot get something out of that. And isn't this a much better world than the world we are living in today? And it's not only about internal peace, it's also about external peace. Because a society that is not engaging in wars other than defending itself if it's attacked is not only less threatening, it's also morally superior because we are not sacrificing our own people for causes that require violence and are dubious at best if this is really worth the price. And wars always come at the expense of citizens, being you have to pay more taxes, you have to be a soldier and die, or you're a civilian and you are bombed and die. And again, warlike societies are a threat to others. But they're used to war, so if you're leading 2 or 3 wars a year, doesn't matter, right? Once you're used to it. So I think there's a lot of cases that in such a society like free private cities are, the external peace will be there because we cannot just force people to pay more for any military activity, especially not abroad. Diversity and competition. Some people say, yeah, but you will take away the high potentials from all the other countries and they will fall apart because the rich will all flee. I tell you that has been the case since the beginning of the world, right? If you're offering a better system, then people will eventually leave and go to that system, which is a good thing because it forces the original legacy states to change. And some people say that Hong Kong, which was a kind of blueprint for Deng Xiaoping when he said, well, actually, if we are true to ourselves, Hong Kong is working and China is not, back in the 90s, or in the 80s even. And he said, let's copy Hong Kong, make the Shenzhen zone and all these other 200 zones. So eventually, what we can see that Hong Kong has changed China more than China Hong Kong. Well, now they're trying to take it, but it had the power to change a multiple times bigger country. And this can happen again. Now, what happened in all the markets? I can tell you this because this is also true for the market of living together. And I have been in some markets, oil, gold, really exciting stuff. Mining, if you can drill for oil and you find oil, you're immediately a producer, and if the oil price is, say, around 100, it's extremely profitable. You have your payback with less than a year. Now, if this is happening, then what happens? Everybody is doing oil business. Like me, a lawyer going into the oil business, right? There must be a boom. And exactly that was the case. And so here you have a tendency of, if there is a market where you can make a lot of money, everybody will jump into that market. And what will be the result? Well, the price will for the services that you need or for the product you are offering will go down. If everybody is producing oil, the price of oil will go down because there's an oversupply, right? And then the drillers have to improve their methods to still make a profit. And that means the quality will increase, the costs will go down. And the same has to be expected from free private cities. If we have 100 competing organizations offering free private cities, there will be a hard struggle to get the good people. That means we have to lower our fees and increase our quality of services, right? So this is a natural development, so no need to fear that competition. And suddenly you would not be a livestock any longer. I'm using that term because I don't know, some of you might know the book The Sovereign Individual. from 1997, and they have a brilliant metaphor. They say, throughout history, the citizen was primarily one thing, a livestock, a cow. The cow grazed, the cow was milked, the cow was slaughtered, which happened in wars especially. So that is not a good status, of course. Nobody wants to be livestock. So here's the replacement, you become a customer, right? There's no more, I promise you to save the world and make you happy. There is, I offer services, and if you are satisfied, you stay and you pay me something, and you are a customer. You're a well-received customer, and I have to provide a good service so that you are coming voluntarily to my free city. And that is, I think, a much different system from take many countries, take away the passports from the citizens so you cannot leave. If you want to leave, you have to pay a lot of money. Or even in the East Bloc, they put a wall around them, say, you're not allowed to leave, right? We need you here. You have to work for the good of the whole community. They have always good reasons. But at the end, it's a more fair system if you decide for yourself. And there would be many different types of free private cities catering the needs of different people, because we are all different, right? And some of you say, hey, I want the minimum social security net. I want to be able to make referendums on all topics. Yeah, there will be cities for that, right? We are different. And this is a good thing. You can choose. I'm often making an example to illustrate the difference and make yourself the case if this is also not a moral question. Imagine you want to buy a car. You go to a car dealer, and the car dealer tells you, yes, you can buy a car, but I decide the model, the motor, the color, the interior, and the price, and you must buy. All of you would say, are you crazy? Go to the next dealer. Well, but this is exactly what you're accepting on the market of living together. Because it's your state, your government, that's telling you which services they provide and what you have to pay for it in taxes. Now just transfer that idea of the car dealer in our world to the market of living together, and you will find out why free private cities are so much better than existing systems. So we will get social harmony through shared values. I mentioned that we will have many different types of free cities, and that's a good thing. So we can go to the city that best caters to our personality. And if we still believe that equal rights for all are a good thing, then let all people have the right to choose where they want to go. And then many political conflicts would simply disappear, because the communist types of people go more in the kibbutz free cities or whatever, and maybe the people here and me, we would go rather to the free private city where the operator just does protection of life, liberty, and property, and otherwise leaves us alone, and we can do what we want. So there's no revolutions needed any longer, because you just introduce a new product. And I think this is already so much more peace in the world and so much less struggle that for this fact alone, that free private cities are a peace offer across the political spectrum. This is one of the big moral arguments in their favor. And there's a higher learning curve, because free private cities are diverse. They will enable many experiments in governance in shorter time. People, for example, who advocate for the universal basic income, I normally tell them, okay, you make your city, and then we will see if anybody will come who also wants to pay for the universal basic income, or only get it, right? We will see. Can happen, right? No need to argue. And that already said that they're morally justified even if they fail, because initial informed consent. And the brain drain they cause puts also pressure on the countries to change, which is also a good thing, because this is for the good of all of us. if the quality increases and the price goes down. The main objections to free private cities are lack of democracy, exclusion of the socially disadvantaged, or inability to address global issues. Well, first and foremost, I told you, if you can vote every 4 or 5 years and otherwise have zero say in what's happening, I don't think that is the original idea of democracy. My understanding is democracy as a rule of all, that means all people should participate and make decisions. And if you are entitled to make in 99% of your life your own decisions because the 1% protection of life, liberty and property and a dispute resolution system, that is covered by the city operator because we can never agree on that on a voluntary basis. So this is what you must buy. You must buy. In my model, you must buy protection of life, liberty and property. But for 99% of the rest of your life, you decide for yourself, right? So I would say this is rather full democracy than the fake democracy we are presented today. Now, the socially disadvantaged are not excluded. The dividing line in free private cities is between willing to work, to perform, or unwilling to make any contribution. And I don't see why we should leave people just come and say, I'm not going to work, you have to pay me. That's not going to work, right? So they have to adapt, they have to change, which create a better society. Because otherwise you have wrong incentives. If you redistribute, which is also kind of taking away from others and giving it to you, then the incentive for this group is work less, and for this group the same, work less, because I don't have to work to get the money. And they say, if I work, you take away the money from me. So this is why the social welfare systems will eventually fail. Now, how do we protect the people who are really in need of help? It's about 5% over all societies. Studies have shown that there are only 5% of the people who really cannot help themselves. And most of the human history, they have been subject to charity, voluntary charity. I have developed a model in my book where you have a combination of self-help institutions, insurance, friends and family, and charities, which should cover those 5%, because you can keep much more money for yourself in my system. And in so far, it's much easier to help the real needy. But the big advantage is that the people who are not needy, who are able to work, are just too lazy to do it, they are not supported. And that is morally a good case, because it mobilizes the best in the people. It mobilizes the people helping the people who really need help and can't help themselves. But it's not rewarding the people who are just too lazy to make their own living. And that creates a society of responsible, stronger people than we have in social welfare systems of today that run to the state at any occasion and say, help me, bail me out. Global issues, normally you can deal with all issues, environmental issues, adaptation to climate change on a regional level. People that are claiming there's a global thing, we need global world government to address this, it's mostly about power. It's not about saving somebody, it's about control. And even if there was a meteorite coming to Earth, there's no need to establish a world government. You can solve those issues on a local level, and 90, or I would say 100% of those cases, it's not even clear if there is a global threat. So you need some areas that do it differently. Like Sweden did differently in COVID, and without Sweden we would have no comparison, which is a good thing. So I have written about this in extension. As Peter said, my book was published, the first version in 2018, and it was time for an overwork. So this book is published and coming out today for the conference. It's the 3rd edition, has 6 new chapters, completely overworked. It's covering charter cities, network states, prosper, legal and seasteading, so new developments that happened in the last 5 years. Then some points that people from out of also out of your group have addressed to me, said, hey, culture, you should talk about culture, architecture, and ethics. And of course, how would free private cities have dealt with the COVID issues? So, if you like that, at the booth of the Free Private Cities or the Free Cities Foundation, outside to the right, you have a discount price for the German and the English version. It's all there, and even if you have read the book, read it again, new chapters, new insights. So what are the key takeaways? If you are not harming anyone else, you should be free to do business and innovate. If you work hard and earn money, you should be free to keep it. If you like a service offered, you should be able to purchase it. If you do not call for violence, you should be able to say what you want and say what you think. If you want to transfer money, you should not need to ask permission. That is, in my view, morally not only acceptable, it's better than any other system can offer you. The freedom to reject is the only freedom. Why did he say that? Because that is indeed the decisive factor, right? The freedom from vaccination, the freedom from gender speech, the freedom from whatever, be drafted in the military service. So it's not that we just want to be left alone. No, the human nature is that we cooperate, that we network. That is the differentiation between us and chimpanzees, right? That's why we rule the world and not any other animals. That means not that we just do whatever we want. It means that we cannot be forced to do things that we do not want. That is the important message, right? Because why should I be in a position to force you to something you don't want? That means I'm a superior human being, and you are inferior. You have to obey me. That is not equal rights. Now ask the critiques. You know there are a lot of people criticizing free cities, free private cities. What exactly is your problem with letting people voluntarily try out new systems? I repeat it. What exactly is your problem with letting people voluntarily try out new systems? And please ask this question, because eventually we'll find out it's because I know better than you what is good for you. There's only one answer to that question. That is because I know better. Try it, put it to the test. In the free private cities, your rights and are guaranteed and directly enforceable by you. You can go to court and say, I'm making a complaint, filing a complaint because of the contract. And you would be, for the first time, since you can decide 99% of all issues for yourself, and the remaining 1% you have signed up in advance. So you are sovereign of yourself. You would be a real sovereign individual. If you want, if you don't want, you don't have to. So don't be fooled. Free private cities are by far morally superior to any existing political system. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's up to you to spread the word. Thank you very much.